Jaden Daniels is the player who can shatter the NFC East order. One analyst declared he is the division's biggest game changer. But with limited weapons, a young defense, and brutal expectations ahead, can Washington unleash a superstar or collapse under the pressure?
Just give 30 seconds, please, one pass on the Commanders, because, again, these conversations come up in these divisions, and I always feel like there's this little redheaded stepchild team that we're not talking about, and we need to talk about the Commanders, Manti.
James, ask the question. I got you. What's our next question?
Who is the most important player in the NFC East?
Jaden Daniels, James. I got you. I got you, girl. I know. Hey, this is why we're teammates, James. We know what each other want. Jaden Daniels is the most important person in NFC East. Okay. Why? Because when you look at the Commanders, I don't know what I'm getting out of the Commanders. You know, you look at the running back room. You got Bill Krosky-Merritt, young. You got Rachaad White, who was RB2 over there for Tampa for a long time. You have a very thin quarterback room, and you have a very young defense. Now, I know Dan Quinn is a head coach. I know what I'm getting there. But then you also have an offensive coordinator that has the same amount of coaching experience in the NFL that Jaden Daniels has playing experience in the NFL. But this is what history will tell you. You don't sleep on the Washington Commanders when Jaden Daniels is at the helm. We were sleeping on them in 2024, at least I was, and then all of a sudden they're playing in the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles. If Jaden Daniels is healthy, which all reports out of minicamp and OTAs that he looked like his old self, if not better, do not sleep on the Washington Commanders, because if this guy is on his P's and Q's, he is the most important player in the NFC East because he does move the needle that much, Jaleel.
Yeah, I'm excited to see a healthy Jaden Daniels.
But then again, I told you, the Commanders, I saw a thing in camp where they're already talking about disguising, and they're showing disguising. And you know this, Jaleel, there are steps that you have to get in order to get to that disguise point, right? Yep. Like, you have to first establish the basics. Foundation, and when you understand the basics, then you start to understand what my teammate's doing. And when you can do that, then you can start to disguise. All reports out of minicamp and OTAs have been the defense has been disguising, and Jaden Daniels have gotten them sometimes, and sometimes the defense has gotten Jaden. That is a great thing if you're a Washington Commanders fan. And so I don't know the last two, but the first two for me, Jaleel, is 1A, 1B. Yeah. I think the more responsibility is on Jaden, though.
Yeah, steady the ship.
Yes, because Jaden doesn't have
the weapons.
Right? When you think of Jackson has the weapons. He has the running back that he's going to hand the ball off to. He has pretty much the wide receivers. They signed Odell Beckham. They have Juju Smith-Schuster there.
Isaiah
Likely is the tight end. You know, you hope that you get Malik Neighbors back eventually, right? So you have the guys there. I mean, if you're Jaden, you have Terry McLaurin, and then you have Luke McCaffrey. You know, I love Luke, man. I've heard that Treylon Burks, who came over, is having a good offseason right now. Right. So there's a lot of question marks for me at the skilled position for Jaden Daniels. So if I had to think about the biggest jump, it would have to be Jackson. The more responsibility is from Jaden.
Keep in mind, Cliff Kingsbury moved on from the Commanders as well. So David Blau, now the offensive coordinator, young, but made a name for himself with the Lions.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm interested to see how David Blau uses Jaden Daniels, right? Like, we've seen the injury that he had last year. And it's like, are you going to still implement a true quarterback run scheme? Or
you said you're going to put him under center.
Okay, put him under center and allow him to be the athlete. Don't have design runs, right? He's not built like a Josh Allen, right? Lamar Jackson, similar build to Jaden Daniels. He's not built like a big time, like Herbert, right? These guys can take on hits. You can do quarterback design runs. That's my question. How are the Commanders, going to use Jaden Daniels this year? How are they going to implement him in the offense? Because his legs are a weapon still, right? He has a really good arm. He's really accurate. But don't get it twisted. His legs is what takes him over the hump as well and allows him to be the elite quarterback that he is in the NFL. So I'm very interested to see how they use him.
A little bit of love, right? Perfect day to get back to getting defensive. And with rookies reporting to camp this week, let's dive into some of these rookie defenders looking to make an immediate impact. We begin with Sonny Styles. Now, Styles hoping to revamp a Commanders defense that really struggled across the board last season. ranking 27th or worse in all these categories, major categories, by the way. Washington wasn't effective against the pass or run. Points per game, yards per rush, yards per play, and total QBR. That, along with Jayden Daniels' injuries, led to a very underwhelming 2025 season. So, Lewis, how do you expect Sonny Styles to impact the Commanders' defense really right away, because they need him right away?
Yeah, look, you know, talking to people at Ohio State, that the guy is just uniquely qualified to step right in at a young age and take over and take control. So really, communication is the number one thing that he will probably really, make his mark with, because he's just so football smart. Versatility is the other thing, meaning he's a 3-down player who can absolutely stop the inside run because he's 6'5", 250 pounds. He can track down the outside run because he runs 4.3, and then he can cover backs and tight ends, because he's just that athletic and is a former safety. So I think he's going to make an impact all over the place, but first and foremost, he's just so mature and ready to take control, as the signal caller and the green dot guy.
Yeah, he's one of those guys, like a rookie reporting to camp. When he gets with the veterans, everyone's going to be like, all right, so that's a veteran too. He looks like he belongs. He looks like he should be an NFL player. He's built for it. All right, let's talk a little bit more.
The NFC East has always belonged to the Giants. Philadelphia, Dallas, New York. Big names, massive expectations, and championship pressure. But now, one analyst believes the entire division could be controlled by one player wearing burgundy and gold.
Jayden Daniels. Not because Washington has the deepest roster, not because they have the most proven stars, but because when this quarterback is healthy, he has the rare ability to completely change the direction of a franchise.
1 year ago, many people ignored the Commanders. They were viewed as a rebuilding team with too many questions. Then, Jayden Daniels arrived and turned those doubts into disbelief.
Washington went from an afterthought to an NFC Championship game contender in 2024, shocking the league and forcing everyone to reconsider what this team could become. And now the question is no longer, can Jayden Daniels play? The question is much bigger. Can Jayden Daniels carry an entire organization on his shoulders and destroy the established order of the NFC East? But becoming the most important player in the division comes with a brutal reality. Because unlike some of his rivals, Jayden Daniels does not have the luxury of an unlimited supporting cast. This is where the conversation becomes complicated. Because while Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and other elite quarterbacks enter the season surrounded by established weapons, Washington still has major question marks. The Commanders' running back room features players like Bill Krosky-Merritt and Rachaad White, but there is no clear superstar presence that forces defenses to panic. At wide receiver, Terry McLaurin remains the trusted veteran weapon, but after him, uncertainty remains. Luke McCaffrey has shown promise. Treylon Burks arrived with expectations of a fresh start, but Washington still lacks the overwhelming offensive firepower that many NFC contenders possess. And that puts the spotlight directly on Jayden Daniels. Because his biggest challenge is not proving he can make spectacular plays. We already know he can. The challenge is surviving when defenses know he is the player they must stop. Last season showed the magic of his legs, his accuracy, and his ability to create chaos. But the NFL adjusts quickly. The question for Washington is simple. When opponents take away the easy plays, who else can save them? And that pressure becomes even greater because Washington is entering a new offensive era, one that will determine whether Daniels takes the next step or faces another uphill battle. For the first time in his young NFL career, Jayden Daniels will operate without Cliff Kingsbury calling the plays. The new offensive coordinator is David Blau, a young coach who made his name through his work with Detroit. But now comes the biggest challenge of his career. How do you maximize a quarterback whose greatest weapon is also his biggest risk? Because Jayden Daniels is not built like Josh Allen. He does not have the massive frame that allows quarterbacks to absorb endless punishment. He is closer to Lamar Jackson, explosive, athletic, dangerous in space. But Washington has to be careful. His legs are not just a bonus, they are part of what makes him special. His rushing ability changes defensive structures. It forces linebackers to hesitate, It creates opportunities that normal quarterbacks simply cannot create. But every designed run carries a price. David Blau must find the perfect balance.
Let Daniels be the athlete. Let him attack defenses, but protect the player who could become the face of the franchise.
Because if Washington loses Jaden Daniels for an extended period, the entire NFC East dream could collapse instantly. But while the offense depends on Daniels, Washington's defense may determine whether his brilliance becomes enough. The biggest concern surrounding Washington might not be Jaden Daniels. It might be everything happening behind him.
The Commanders' defense struggled dramatically last season, ranking 27th or worse in several major defensive categories.
They struggled against the pass. They struggled against the run.
They struggled stopping points, limiting yards per rush, and slowing opposing quarterbacks.
Those failures, combined with injuries to Jaden Daniels, created a disappointing 2025 season.
Now, Washington is searching for answers. And one of their biggest hopes is rookie defender Sonny Styles. At 6'5" and 250 pounds, Styles brings rare physical tools. He can attack inside runs. He can chase plays toward the sideline with his 4.3 speed. And because of his background as a safety, he has the athletic ability to cover tight ends and running backs.
But perhaps his biggest impact will come from leadership. Washington needs someone who can communicate, someone who can organize a young defense, someone who can make mistakes disappear before they happen.
And coaches believe Styles has the football intelligence to become that player immediately. But even with young stars arriving, Washington still faces the biggest question of all. Are they ready for the pressure that comes with being a threat in the NFC East? The NFC East does not forgive weakness. Every mistake gets exposed. Every injury becomes a crisis. Every bad decision becomes a headline. For Washington, everything begins and ends with Jaden Daniels. If he stays healthy, if David Blau unlocks his full potential, if the young defense develops faster than expected, the Commanders could become the nightmare nobody wants to face. Because history has already shown what happens when teams underestimate Washington.
They did it in 2024.
And Jaden Daniels made them pay. Now, the entire league is watching.
The expectations are higher. The pressure is heavier. The margin for failure is smaller.
Jaden Daniels is no longer the surprise player chasing the NFL. He is the player everyone is chasing. And in a division filled with giants, the smallest mistake could decide whether Washington becomes the next NFC power or another team crushed by impossible expectations. The NFC East order has survived for decades, but one quarterback has the power to rewrite everything. The only question is, will Jaden Daniels become the player who breaks the division or the player forced to carry a broken team?
Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.